Hey gang, Dan Alatorre coming to you live, and today we have a special treat. We're going to invite a special guest to join us. It's going to be a dual live session. And as soon as we get up and running here in just a second, we should get the invitation to invite her to our session. That's what should happen any second here. We're notifying viewers that you're live. Thanks for joining. We're going to have a dual live session here in just a second. I'm waiting for the invitation to go out. I'm an author. I've got an avid reader that's going to be joining us. So I hope that we get the link set up here in just a sec. So just bear with us for 1 minute until the link pops up. Tips for going live. There we go. Accept. And be good to go.
Did I do it right?
Well, you did it right. Congratulations. So welcome everybody. So here's how this works. If you've never done a live session, a dual live session, people who follow you are getting noticed right now that you're live, and people who follow me are getting noticed that I'm live. So my people can ask me questions. They won't appear on your screen, and your people can ask you questions, and they won't appear on my screen. So if you see a question you want to ask, go ahead. So you go under the handle on TikTok of Flamingo Kisses, but in real life, your name is, or do you just want to be Flamingo Kisses?
My name's Holly.
Okay. Well, so how Holly first came to my attention was I think I was just scrolling past on TikTok, and I had done a TikTok live, and you watched part of it. I don't know how long you were on for, probably not very long. But when it's over, TikTok will tell you here's the people who tuned in, like the top 10 viewers. And so what I always try to do is click on them and send them a little message saying thanks. And so we chatted a little bit. I was looking at some of your videos, and that's how I got on your radar screen. And I found them to be very upbeat and entertaining. So is that something that comes natural to you, or is that something you just do for TikTok, or what?
No, I feel like I'm a pretty naturally upbeat person. I've kind of always been like that. People say that I'm happy and bubbly and bright.
Well, that's good. Well, you seem that way, and frankly, I think all your videos have that appeal to them, so they're eminently watchable. Now, me, I'm more. I have good days and bad days. I could be tired. I got my hair looks like I'm freaking Frisch's big boy today. I don't know what's going on. I got a Conan O'Brien wave going on. But so if I'm upset about something, I'll do an upset TikTok video. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that from you. They're all pretty upbeat.
No, I try to keep everything on my page pretty positive, and I also try to keep everything on my page pretty family friendly, just because I mean, even if it's like talking about a spicy book, I have some kids, not kids, but like younger people following me. So I try to keep everything pretty tame.
Yeah, I think we're all cognizant that, like, I have a 12-year-old daughter, and she follows me. She doesn't really look at my videos, but every once in a while she'll be like, "Dad, what's this all about?" Now I haven't talked about anything. Like one was imposter syndrome. She's like, "What's that?" And so it's like I'm not talking about anything that she couldn't hear about, but by the same token, I'm aware that she's out there, and this can be seen by anybody. So I try to steer away from that. But I figure TikTok is pretty good about not shoving my content toward people who are not interested in seeing it, kind of, sort of. So you post a lot about books. You're a book enthusiast. What are your favorite genres that you enjoy reading the most?
I like a little bit of everything. I've got like an entire shelf over here that's like YA and I guess it would be marketed as like children's books, but it's like Percy Jackson and stuff like that.
Maybe technically. I think everybody read those books.
So that's kind of from my childhood, though. I don't know if I've read a lot of those things recently. Um, but I think for the most part, I like mystery and suspense. But then I also like romance and a little bit of sci-fi, and I really like the the new genre known as romantasy.
Romantic fantasy.
It's like fantasy romance. Just but I just really like anything that's got some sort of positive conclusion. I feel like I have pretty bad anxiety, so anything that wraps up nicely with a nice little bow at the end, I'm happy with.
Well, I think most people appreciate a story that if you start out and you and like spending time with those characters, the main character, whatever, you kind of want to see them okay at the end, right?
Yes.
It's like a Hollywood ending to a movie. You kind of want to know that they all live happily ever after, like the Harry Potter books. I started reading those because my daughter and her friends were watching the movies, right? So that's
Mm-hmm.
however long ago that was. And I really sat down to read them with the intent of not liking them. I thought these are aimed at kids. And I'd never really watched the movies. They were like on, but I wasn't paying any attention because I was doing other stuff. So I sit down and I start reading the first page of the first book. And I'm like, it's a mystery. I'm hooked. And I read the whole book and I went in with the intention of not liking it. Kind of like I'm probably not gonna like this, and kind of like I kind of don't want to like this, you know? I don't know why, but I enjoyed the hell out of it. And then we watched. So the goal was I was going to read each book and then watch the movie and see which one I thought was better. And you know, I did a blog way back then, so I was going to tell my readers whatever I thought about the comparisons, right? Um, and my daughter was like, "Hurry up and read the next book so we can watch the next movie." She'd seen them already like 20 times, so the pressure got to me. I couldn't read the books fast enough for her, so we just started watching all the movies. So I ended up watching all the movies, and later on, I kind of came back to the books. But they're not kids' books per se. They're about a kid, but
Yeah.
you know the stories aren't. They're not dumb stories. They don't talk down to the reader. It's not like if you're more than 7 or 8 years old, you're not going to enjoy them. If you go in with an open mind, you're very likely to enjoy them because they're mysteries. They're adventures, but there's mysteries right off the bat. It's like, who's doing these things, right? What's wrong with Harry? And we figure that out, and then he's solving mysteries in at Hogwarts. And Percy
Yeah.
Jackson is based on Greek mythology, isn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah, big adventures
So
there. Mysteries.
I have a lot. I have a very big Harry Potter collection, but you will not see them out here. They are kept there in my office, and I even have a couple of books of printed fan fiction and like art on the walls, and it's this really nice display. But I don't keep them out here because I grew up with Harry Potter, so like I was Harry's age, pretty much as the books went on.
Well,
So
what kind of time period did those come out over? How many years?
several. I
Yeah,
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but I
there was
know
a few.
that I remember when I first started reading them, my mom had to read it first. She was like, I have to read it first to make sure that it's appropriate for you. And so she read it, and then I was allowed to read it. And then I know that the very last one came out, I was at least in high school, if not graduated. So I literally grew up with Harry, like at the same time. And I feel like that's maybe part of why I connect with it so much and why it means so much to me. But I remember going to the release of the last book with my sister. I did have to get permission from my parents to go like to a midnight release.
Wow.
So it had to have been before I graduated, probably junior or senior. But I remember that it was a very new experience for me, and it was amazing, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool.
Going to a book release. So was it at a bookstore?
It was at Barnes and Noble.
Yeah. Yeah, they did well on those. There was people lined up. So you went at midnight. So did you just go and get in, or did you have to stand in line, or what was the deal?
There was like a whole party, like you went early and there was things to do. You could make potions and take charms class and do wand stuff, and it was really neat. There was a whole bunch of different things, and then I went to another one that was similar to that for one of the Twilight books. I can't remember which one. Probably the last one again. Whoops.
Well, people get kind of excited about the last book because it's over and they all want to celebrate. They want to celebrate getting the book and they're kind of emotional about it. It's over now. As soon as we read this, it's done. And I think that was J.K. Rowling had said, you know, this is it and it's over, kind of thing. I think everybody knew that the last one was the last one. There wasn't, well, maybe there'll be another. But
Yeah.
when you say you're kind of a Harry Potter, you didn't say you were a Harry Potter nerd, but you have a big collection. What would be something in your collection that would be outside the realm of what? Okay, let me back up a step. So my daughter was into Harry Potter, so we had a birthday party that was a Harry Potter theme. We hung little candles from this little paper candles all
Yes.
over our living room and stretched out our tables in a big row in front of the fireplace and put chairs around them to look like, you know, the way they ate at the dining hall at Hogwarts. We had a poster on the wall that was, you like held it up in front of you with a cutout. Are you this? What does it say? Like, have you seen this person or whatever it says? You know, the prisoner of Azkaban guy. We had a
Yeah, it's
wand
like,
making
have you seen
station.
this wizard? And then it's got the runes at the bottom.
Thank you. I couldn't think of it. So in the front of the house, when you came in, there's like a French doors you have to go to get to the living room area where the party was. And so we put up a big red. It was like a big plastic brick wall. It was like a tablecloth, okay. And so you had to run through that to get to the other side. We had suitcases out there, so we kind of did it over the top. She was a little kid at the time. I think she was in first grade, right? Kindergarten or first grade. So it's been a little while, but because of that, she was kind of into it for a while after that. So we had, you go to Universal Studios, you buy the wand, it does magic things with the stuff, and so her little play area, which I'm pointing here, it's like because it's right outside my office here, and so it was all decorated here as Harry Potter for a while. We had a little cage with a stuffed owl in it, and then little by little, as she kind of outgrew it, kind of like she kind of outgrew her princess phase, it kind of went. Now we have other friends who still love that stuff. And so some of it went to them, some of it we gave away. But that was my point was there was a big times when lots of kids were into it. And then we kind of moved on. Now, you may have moved on as far as your reading interests, but you've kept your collection. So what would be something that you might have around the house there that people be like surprised to see, or something that's really obscure that nobody has?
I don't know if anybody else has this because I haven't seen it in like other people's collections. But when it was just the books out and there weren't any movies yet, there was a I had a head I had a Hedwig backpack. It's a stuffed owl with a zipper on its head. And so the inside you could stick things in it, but it's like why? There's
You're sticking it
nothing's
through his
gonna
head,
fit in
not
there.
down his throat.
So I don't know if anybody else has that, and I know that I have completely depleted its value, but I cut the straps off of it because I'm not going to sell it. I'm going to keep it for the rest of my life.
Well, what do you use it for if you cut the straps off? It's not a backpack
I
now.
No, it's just a display owl. It's got
Uh,
a wizard hat on its head, the sorting hat now,
now
and
we
so
had a
it
hat.
sits
We
on
had a
my
sorting
shelf.
hat. We had a big wizard hat. We had you remember the book, the monster book?
Mm-hmm.
So we made one of those because it was like furry, I think. So we made one of
Yes.
those out of some big old book, some dictionary or something. And then a friend, excuse me, made some treats one day. Came over, some of the kids were getting together, and it was like I don't remember, but it was a treat. It was like graham crackers with things in the middle, like marshmallows in between, and then eyeballs on top, and it was like so cool. I was like, what a neat treat. Another one they made was it was like a pretzel stick, no, the small ones like this size, with what the heck was around the bottom? There was chives in there that looked like straw at the bottom. Must have
Mm-hmm.
been a piece of cheese or something that it was stuck on. I can't remember. And that was the little flying brooms. This lady was very creative. She made some really cool cookies and stuff. But now, if you asked me, probably the most nth degree thing we went was we went to Universal Studios a lot, so we bought several of those, the special ones they have, where you pointed at something and a suit of armor falls apart, so the kids can feel like they're doing some magic stuff. And most of the time they work, but sometimes they don't. Um, but I would think probably the most obscure thing was we had as a decoration a bird cage that used to sit on a shelf and then it went in the attic. And so I got the little stuffed owl and I put it in the bird cage. And that hung around for a long time. Like after the other Harry Potter stuff kind of went away, I was like, kind of like that one. It was kind of like creative that I made. But it eventually went away too. And I'd be honest with you, I know we still have like the witch's hat. I don't know if we have anything else. A couple of wands, the universal wands. We sure have those, but it's not out. It's like put away somewhere, you know.
Yeah, I have a bird cage too because I have not had a Harry Potter party for myself, but my sister had a Harry Potter themed baby shower. So a lot of the same stuff. Like I have a curtain that my mom hand stamped that looks like a brick wall that everybody walked through. So it's very
Yeah,
similar stuff that you had
exactly.
at your party. So
That's probably what that thing was. I don't know. Maybe it was to get in and out of the shower. I don't know. But my wife had the idea of hanging it over the doorway, and you had to run through the bricks. And remember
that's a
now,
great idea.
that party was before I read the book or the movie. So I'm like, you have to run through bricks. I was clueless. I didn't get any of this stuff. I read all that stuff later. All right. So let me ask you this. So we'll talk a little more about books in a sec, but what do you do in your non-TikTok life?
um, so I am a preschool teacher currently. I
Well,
teach
that's good.
3-year-olds. For
Oh,
I
so
got
that's
I
way
have
preschool.
yes. And I am a graduate student in a Master's of Mental Health Counseling program. So I am working my way through that.
Oh, that's very impressive. You know what? If I wouldn't have guessed before you said it, but now that you said it, that upbeat, friendly personality in all your videos and on display now suits very well for kindergarten teachers and preschool teachers because the little kids just kind of bring that out in us, hopefully. And most of the good preschool and kindergarten teachers that I've met that really made an impression on me, as far as teachers I've been around, they're that way. They have that upbeat disposition. I think that's a harder job than most people realize. How long have you been doing that?
I've been doing that since I graduated with my undergrad degree in 2018. So I've been doing it for a while
That's a
now.
while, yeah. So when I
It's
checked
probably
out your
the
page,
longest job I've had.
oh really? Well, you're young, so but that's 4 years of that is pretty good. So, like I said, I find your post to be really upbeat and all that, and mostly about books. And you mentioned your favorite genres, and so we had our little dust up where I mentioned about these types of things back here that I like to take the dust cover off a hardcover book. And apparently, I kind of learned this after you and I talked or posted back and forth. What I do is if I buy a hardcover book, I take the dust cover off while I'm reading it. Although sometimes my wife pointed out, she goes, sometimes you use it for a bookmark. You fold that flap over inside. And I was like, yeah, that's true. But it's like I couldn't figure out, why do I take the cover off? There's two reasons. I'll get to the second one in a second. But the first one is it's harder to hold on to the book while you're reading it. The paper doesn't want to follow what the book cover is going to do, and it makes it slippier or whatever. So that's my thing. So I post and you post back. And then what was it, like a Sunday morning? I wake up and I'm the subject of my comment is the subject of one of your posts. And here I'm like, oh God, here comes the hate. But I was surprised to find out that about 1/3 of the people don't put the book cover back on. They get rid of it, which is what I do. And apparently that shocked the other 2/3 of the book
I
reading.
was amazed. I expected that I would get people that would say, "Yeah, I take it off while I'm reading," and I'm like, "Okay, yeah, that makes sense." I was not expecting that many people to be like, "Yeah, I throw it away too," and I was like, "Ah!"
You said your soul died or something. A little of your soul
I
died.
was like, "Hang on, I'll be right back."
Now here's what was good about that. Because your videos are so upbeat, it would have been out of character for any of the people who follow you to come on and really, throw hate right in my direction. Let's
Mm-hmm.
face it, you were not expecting to get any hate from that post. And then just so the people following along at home know, she like sends me a message like, I'm so sorry, I hope you're okay, I hope no hate comes your way. And I was like,
I
I'm
was
an
not
author, I
expecting
got
it.
armadillo skin, elephant skin, you can't rile me up. Nothing's as bad
I
as
wasn't expecting it to go crazy the way it did,
well, it got a
and
lot
so
of
when
views,
it
but I
did, I
like the
was like,
comments.
no, I don't want him to think that I'm actually mad or
Well,
anything.
that did cross my mind the first instant I saw it, but you're not that way, so it didn't take me very long. Like 3 seconds into the video, I'm like, no worries. And then I checked out the comments. I think I even replied to you before I read the comments. I was like, Don't worry about it. If the worst thing that happens to me is somebody says boo on TikTok, I'm not worried. Then I started reading the comments, and like I said, 2/3 were like, oh, that's insanity, monsters. And the other 1/3 were like, yeah, that's what I do. So, so I was surprised by that. But did that end up getting a lot more views than your normal videos do?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, it definitely did. It was I think it kept going up. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think it's one of the higher ones I've got. I only have
Really?
one. I only have one. I have one that's 20,000 views, and that was when I
Oh,
announced the title of my book that I'm working on. And then that one I think got up near 10,000.
10,000 is a lot.
I
I
could be
think
wrong.
I think I had one where I was talking about, I don't even remember what I was talking about, something about books. But like something like here's why you go to a library or something. Like it wasn't about my books, it was just like enjoying books. That got like 2,000. Then I did another one. Dang, I can't remember what it was about either. And it got like 5,000 or something. Now in the meantime, my daughter took a video of her ceiling fan and put frog stickers, like how you can superimpose a sticker. That
Yeah.
video of hers got like 10,000 views in like, over a couple of months. And she's like, you're still not doing as good as me. So to get 10,000, and that was pretty short order. It's been less than 30 days, right? So that's
Hmm.
pretty good. And that was something else I was going to comment on. Your followers, I always, when I'm looking at somebody, I'm like, okay, how many followers do they have? I think you have like 3,000 something, right? Am I wrong about that? It's like around 3,000 something.
It's roughly 3,200, I think.
And then your likes are like 10 times that, so like 30,000 likes, which is a big ratio. Okay, so like when I look at mine, I have like around 2,000 followers and around 8,000 likes, so kind of like a 4-to-1 ratio. Yours is like a 10-to-1 ratio. So not that this means anything, but it is very impressive. When I looked at that, I thought, well, first of all, it was pretty solid, and second of all, she gets a lot of likes, 10 likes per person who follows you. So you're sharing it around. You're doing the right things. You're definitely.
I don't know
How
what
long?
I'm doing.
You know what? It's like we said. You're upbeat. You're enthusiastic about what you're doing. You obviously enjoy it, and people tune in for that little glimpse of happiness, I think.
I do like
So
I like making people happy, so that's a win in my book.
it is. If you do something that makes you happy, to make somebody else happy, that's a win-win. How long have you been on TikTok doing this kind of stuff?
Well, I've only really been doing book related content since August of last year.
So what's that? 4 and about 9 months, something like that. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I joined TikTok maybe a year ago, but it was only because my daughter was on TikTok and she's like, Dad, create an account so you can like my videos. So for like 9 months, it was just she would come down, take my phone, go on TikTok, like the video she had just posted upstairs
Of course.
of herself. And that's all it was. I think I put a picture of the bunnies on. We have rabbits. I put a picture of our bunnies on there, and like one other thing. That's all it was for 9 months. Then my wife in January, my wife said you should try to do something TikTok related for your being an author. And I was like, okay, yeah, I guess so. What the heck would I do? So I spent 2 weeks just going through and watching videos. I didn't comment on anything. I didn't like anything. I just was an observer, and I was basically taking whatever TikTok was sending to me, knowing nothing except it would know probably what videos I spent more time watching. So it was a bunch of, you know, what do they call them? Fail army stuff, where somebody's trying to water ski and they face plow instead, and dogs running through fields and puppies and kittens, and it was a pretty. There was other stuff like scuba divers and cliff divers. It was a wide variety, but I found myself. I was like, this is great. I'd be on it for an hour at night, instead of the TV's on, but I'm looking at TikTok. And then when I started to try to curate, the suggestions I got were follow readers, follow authors, and make your content that. All of a sudden, my content became the stuff TikTok was sending me became pretty boring because it was always just other authors trying to sell their book, and I'm like, that wasn't too much fun. So I kind of uncurated and started looking around and just going to like whatever I like, and we'll see where it goes from there. So right off the bat, I got like 2,000 followers because I was following back people who followed me, and I was looking
Hmm.
at all these authors, and I got a bunch of authors following me. I was like, I don't want to sell books to other authors. I'm trying to sell them to readers. It's kind of the wrong thing here. But have you had any struggles with TikTok as far as what you've been doing?
Well, I made a little bit of author content at the beginning because that's what I was doing. I was writing a book, and so I was like, I'm gonna make content about this, and it got like decent interactions. But I was kind of along the same lines. It's like, okay, well, if you enjoy books and you're building an audience around readers, then eventually, when your book comes out, then you have a whole bunch of readers that are following you already, so you can kind of still keep doing your bookish content and then kind of sprinkle in some here's my book.
Yeah, like a ratio of advertising to fun posts, like a 10 to 1 or 3 to 1 or whatever people suggest. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, and first of all, authors are readers, you know, so it's not like you're pitching it completely to the wrong people. That's not the case. But I don't think the majority of your followers are authors. I think they're mostly people who want to know about the books you're reading and like want to know your thoughts on the book you just read, that kind of thing. Would you say that's correct?
I would say that's fairly true. Although I am terrible at remembering to post reviews.
To, to go
I
on and
will
do a
talk
TikTok
all
with it?
day. I will talk all day about what book I just bought, and like I'll make a TikTok or two about it once I've finished it, but I don't actually sit down and make a review because I don't know if it's my ADHD brain, but I just don't think about it. So I'm just like, I'm ready to start the next book.
Because it's
That's
the
where I'm at.
excitement factor. When you're excited about something, you want to share it with everybody. And once you're done, you're happy to be done with the book. But that's not as exciting as picking up the next book. So it
Yeah,
makes for
basically.
it's a more natural thing. Look at the book I'm about to read. That makes much more sense for a TikTok video than this is the one I just finished. What are my thoughts on it? And then do you really want to put your thoughts out there forever when you just finished the book, or do you want to think about it for a day or two after? You know.
Yeah. And like, I don't want to be like negative, but what if I don't like it? And then it's like, I don't want to put something out there that's like, well, I read this book and I didn't like it.
I actually see a lot of that. There's a lot of people who say, oh, I read such and such a book, greatest thing ever. Let's just say you. Let's just say you did that. And now I'm reading. I don't want to. I'm reading. I'm seeing your post. I don't want to come over and comment and put a what do you call it? A pop your balloon of enthusiasm for the book. So if I didn't like the book, I'm probably not going to say anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it probably depends on the person, but I don't find TikTok to be super negative. There are people who are negative on it, but
Yeah.
I think that's rare. Whereas other social media, that's where all the trolls live. So I think, and it wouldn't matter who it was. If somebody's excited about their book and they loved it, most of the comments are, "I loved it too. Oh, that looks good. I can't wait to read it." And so me as a passive reader tend to think, "Wow, it's kind of overhyped." If I pick it up and I didn't enjoy it very much, when in fact the reality is, people were kind of saying, yeah, I liked it too. And the ones who didn't like it saw that same video and decided not to say anything rather than rain on your parade.
Yeah.
So, so for the people who do put out a review, say, it was only 3 stars, it wasn't for me, or 2 stars, it would hurt, right? The author isn't going to want to see that. But the fact is, that tells me a little more because it's one thing if I like what you like, it's another thing if I dislike what you dislike, right? And so it helps round it out. But as far as negative reviews, just be honest. To me, it's like don't trash something out of professional jealousy or whatever. Just say what how the book really struck you and let it at that. And for somebody like you, do you if a book isn't clicking with you, do you finish it or do you not finish it or how does that work?
I'm kind of a mood reader as it is. So if I'm not feeling it, I'm probably going to put it down and then I'll try it again later. That's kind of how
So
I do with reading books.
I would say that's the case with me. I'm kind of got to be in the mood. Let's say I got a romance and a cowboy story and a horror story. I'm not in the mood for all three of those, but there was something about each one theoretically that interested me, right? And I'm eclectic when it comes to watching movies. It's like there's right now. This is a great example. My TikTok. I get an ad every day for this Nicolas Cage movie that I think comes out today or came out yesterday, right? And it looks hilarious, but I like comedies. I like Nicolas Cage, okay. I wouldn't go see a movie just because he was in it, but once upon a time there were people, mostly women, who would go see anything he was in, and he was a big star, right? But I love a movie like that, where it's kind of like he seems like he's making fun of himself in the movie, which is very endearing. You know, you're gonna win. Nicolas Cage is gonna win me back if I didn't like him, which isn't the case. He would win me back with something like that. So, so I would probably watch that movie. I don't know what genre you would call it. Probably comedy, right? But I'll watch an action movie once in a while. I like James Bond movies, you know. So I'm kind of eclectic. Romance is okay, you know. Murder mysteries make great movies for me, but and I might watch a cowboy movie. I like, you know, John Wayne. There was some old John Wayne movie on. I was like, dang, this is pretty good. I sat down, watched it, right? The old black and white thing. So I'm kind of eclectic, but I tend to stick to, for movies, definitely comedies is my preference, and then probably mysteries, right? For books, almost certainly mysteries, but I mix it up. The thing I'm reading right now, I got it right here. The Troop. Did you read this one? This is horror. It's kind of a mystery, but it's mostly horror. Yeah, and I think you said you don't do a lot of horror, right?
I don't read a lot of horror. I remember reading one when I was younger that I really enjoyed. I can't remember what it's called though. I know that it was like a girl works at a zoo and there's like a panther or a tiger or something and it gets out and it's like creating havoc. I don't know. It was a little bit creepy.
Well, you know, and that all depends on how old you are. I remember reading a book when I was somewhere between 12 and 14, let's say, and it was a scary story. And that book stuck with me because of the age I was when I read it. If I read that same book 10 years later, I've been exposed to more things. It's probably way less impactful than it was when I was 12 and hadn't been scared by a book very much, or maybe at all up to that point.
Right.
So, how
I
long is
think
your
I'm the same way with some of my children's books. Like if I went back and read them now, it probably wouldn't be it would be more nostalgic.
yeah,
So it would feel nice to read it, but it probably wouldn't have the same effect.
yes.
Now I've got books here that are similar to books that I read when I was a child. So I read Percy Jackson, and now I've got this book that has uh, mythology in it. And I read fantasy books when I was younger. And now I've got this one that's fantasy, but it's more adult oriented. And so I feel like I still read books that are similar to when I was younger, but more grown up.
You see, my thing with books is I have readers that read a book a day. They read my stuff. They've read everything I've written, right? Which is awesome. But they read a book a day. And I'm like, I couldn't if
How?
I wanted to, partly because I spend so much of my time in front of a computer writing a story that when it's relaxed time, picking up somebody else's story and reading it is not usually my go to method of relaxation, although I know it is for a lot of authors. I want to kind of veg out in front of the TV or TikTok and just be brainless. And even then, I'm still thinking about my story, especially if I'm working on a story at the time. Right now, I'm kind of between books. I finished one. I kind of started the next one. I had a project that I finished in between, but I'm still thinking about, you know, do I want to start like this or like this? So we'll put on like a Law and Order. I always refer that. I never watched that show, but I'll use it, or CSI, one of the old CSIs, right? And
Yes.
it's on, and I'm staring at the screen. My wife will go out and do something. She'll come back in 15 minutes later, and she'll be like, "Oh, how did it end?" I'm like,
Ah.
it was on. I was thinking about, am I going to start with this person getting killed or this person getting killed? You didn't watch it? I was like, well, we can rewind it. I didn't. It's not like I'm watching it twice. I didn't pay attention.
Sometimes you just kind of zone out.
Well, that's how I recharge, you know. So
Yeah.
now, are you done with your book? Finished, or where are you with it? The one you're writing.
No, I have about 30,000 words in one book, and I have about 1,300 in another book.
Different books.
So, yeah, I've got two projects that I'm working on.
Well, if you want a piece of advice, and I know you don't, but here's my suggestion. Every time you get a new bright, shiny toy idea, just jot it down. Give yourself a couple of hundred words or whatever so you can capture that idea and then set it aside and finish one. It doesn't matter which one you finish as long as you finish it. Because you know what we call people with 10 stories started and none finished. We don't call them published authors.
Right.
So, so the one that you're thirty
I
thousand words
think
in.
what?
Sorry, go
Sorry.
ahead.
What was your question?
I was just going to say the one that you're 30,000 words into. Um, do you feel like you're halfway into it or 25% of the way into it? How far into the story do you think you are?
I feel like it's probably about halfway.
Well, halfway is
Um,
good. Is it? It's fantasy, right?
no, this one is romantic comedy, and then my other one
Oh,
is
perfect.
romantic suspense.
Okay. Well, with a romantic comedy, about 60,000, 65,000 is all the longer they have to be. In fact, some of them can be around 40,000 and still do fine. So if you're 30,000 in and you feel like you're halfway, you're more or less right on track. And real romantic comedy. So when, if you had to guess, when do you think you'll have it finished by?
Well, that is a great question, isn't it?
Well, let's go the other way.
um,
How long have you been writing it to get to 30,000 words?
I've been writing it since last August. I
Okay,
think
that's not that bad.
I kind of lost motivation on the story a little bit, and I'm trying to pick it back up. But that's kind of why I started working on the other project, because that idea popped into my head, and I was like, well, it's probably better to be working on something than working on nothing.
Yeah. And usually what
So
happens is you have all the excitement, it's easy to get started, and then you kind of starts to turn into work. And you kind of run out of steam or lose you don't lose the enthusiasm as much as there's a lot of excitement about starting it and getting everything kind of up and running. And then is where the middle, which is, if you're 30,000
yep.
words into a 60,000 word novel, you're in the middle. That's why they call it the mushy middle for a reason. It's like, okay, I got to start getting some conclusions ready and bringing some things together, and then have my finale. And and everybody struggles with that. But to be honest with you, to write 30,000 words since last August is pretty good. A lot of people take a full year and they're working on it very fastidiously. A lot of people take 5 years to write a book, and then there's other people who write a lot faster. But it's not a race. The idea is to get it finished, but to finish writing something that you would want to read, something you'll be proud of writing. So um, that's not unusual to get halfway and find yourself struggling a little bit with it.
And I was talking to my therapist a little bit about it too. And it's also pretty common with people with ADHD to have a really easy time starting a bunch of projects. And then once it's started, you're just like, okay, I'm done.
No doubt about that. But to be honest, all authors get great ideas for stories all the time. And so now you have to have the discipline of, okay, do I want to, work a little on this and work along on that? I think it would be really hard if I was 30,000 words into one story. It'd be easy to set it aside and not come back to it and start something else, and then get that one to 30,000, then be like, I'm going to set them both aside and start another one. That would be kind of easy to do, but it would gnaw at me that, like, I left everybody dangling in my story, right? Those people want to
Hmm.
have their story finished. So it would work. Like I said, I sit down in front of the TV and I'm zoned out, but I'm still thinking about my book and what's going to come next or how I want to revise it or whatever. So what I would suggest for you, again, take it or leave it. Think about what what you see, how, like, you probably have an idea of how that story, the 30,000 one, you probably have an idea of how it ends. Like, say for example, everybody lives, everybody dies, they live happily ever after, they break up, they can't stand each other, they get married, whatever that's going to be. You probably know that. You probably have a couple ideas of some fun things that would be fun to see or write in between now and then. That's basically really all you need. A couple of those things and the ending, and then you sit down. And if you can think to yourself about, this is what the ending would be, this is the ending I'd like to see, then you just have to think about, all right, well, how do I go about making that ending happen based on where I am? Usually writing to the ending takes a lot more words. It always takes me a lot more words to get to the ending than I think it will. Once I know what the ending is, I could be two-thirds of the way through and I'm like, oh, 10,000 words and I'm done. And I write 10,000 words and I'm still 10,000 words away from being done.
And I'm still not even sure 100% if it's going to be like romantic comedy or just like a romance in general, because it's got funny parts in it, but it also has some like real serious stuff. Like
Nothing wrong with
It
that.
starts off. Her husband leaves her. He's a narcissist, and like it's. I'm not gonna say it's hard to write a narcissist because I do have a background in psychology, so I kind of know some things about narcissism, and so I'm I'm writing this character, but it's hard to get into his brain without feeling like, oh my god, I feel like garbage.
That's what you have to do. Think about it. I write about serial killers, and I sit there and I think, what's the worst possible thing I can think of to have this person do? Oh, I'll have them kill children. Like, that's bad. What would be worse than that? Chop them up. Yep, that's horrible. Now I have to go write that. So I have to spend 8 hours or 3 days chopping up children. And,
So,
and it
are
only
you
works if
writing?
I, huh?
Do you write from the killer's perspective sometimes, or do you write from somebody else's perspective?
So yes, sometimes sometimes it's just let's say the cops and they're looking at what's happening, and other times there's a scene where it's like the killer is doing whatever the killer is doing. And so when you do that, I just try to think of the wildest, craziest stuff that would make everybody want to stay away from this killer. And the fact that the killer is able to get it together and go to work the next day is like, what did they say? Somebody made the comment like, everybody probably, something along the lines of, everybody probably knows a serial killer or somebody who's murdered somebody. Something about, if you know 100 people, then, and like the ratio of six or whatever, out of 600 people, one probably killed somebody. I don't know what that was. And the idea was, makes you want to think twice about going back to the family, the high school reunion, right? It's like somebody's crossed paths. Everyone has crossed paths with a killer at some point in their life. I'm messing
Basically.
that up. I'm messing that up. But but I figure, okay, so now you have your cops and they're at this conference and the killer's like sitting right next to them, but they don't know it's the killer. And then I let the reader know that. So they're like, holy cow, they're right next to each other. They're going to figure it out. What's going to happen? I do that. So in order to do that, sometimes I have to change POV and be that killer. And then I just think of the wildest, nuttiest stuff. And I have a lot of internal thoughts for that killer, like he was going to kill this one detective. And then he was just like, he wouldn't even refer to her as a person. He referred to her as an object, like it needs to die. And it's like,
Mm.
it's psychology. You understand that. He's
Yeah.
dehumanizing her, really pushing in that direction because that's how he can kill things. He doesn't think of them as people. And then I go online. I read articles about psychopaths and what they enjoy, and they seem to have a sexual gratification from murdering. So again, without putting that explicitly, you show the rush of emotion that they have while they're doing their killing, and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And the thing about everybody knowing a killer, I mean, BTK was a family man, so you
Well, what
really never
about
know.
what's his name? The guy who killed all the girls in Florida at Florida State or University of Florida. Real charming guy, and
Fundy.
Fundy, and everybody who knew him was like, charming guy, so smart. Even the judge who was sentencing the life sentence, like, you'd have made a good lawyer. I'd have been proud to have you
You'd
in
have been
practice.
great.
But instead, we're going to send you the electric chair because you're a freaking nutcase. So, and that's even
Yeah.
more scary. I think that's even scary, don't you? Like,
Yeah.
if the bad guy is ugly and acts weird, we can all kind of see that. But if they're
Oh,
charming and
absolutely.
friendly, you don't want to think the charming, friendly neighbor is actually the psycho who's chopping up children in his backyard and burying them under the house or whatever.
Look, my anxiety just tells me to be afraid of everyone. So.
And well, we probably shouldn't talk too much about serial killers then. Not on this call, anyway. Well,
Well,
speaking
so
of that, did you get anybody jump in and ask you any questions? I have a couple over here. Somebody
I
wants to
did
know.
not.
I got a few. You have to scroll down because as people come on, it pushes the questions away. But one says,
No,
"Does
I've got like 4 comments and that's it. So you
well, what
probably have more
happens
questions
is
than me.
I don't because we've been conversing, so people don't feel like they should interrupt with a question. But if we were like when I've done the other live sessions, I'll tell everybody, hey, I'm gonna talk about this, and I'll keep saying, if you have a question, ask it. If you have a question, ask it. We didn't really do too much of that this time, so that's why they didn't. But one of them was, do you feel sometimes that your reading interferes with your writing? And be like, yes. For me, if I'm reading a book, I kind of want to finish it. I don't want to take 2 months to read a book. And if I'm writing a book, I kind of want to finish it. I don't want to interrupt. And I definitely, I'm one of those people who I feel like if I read this book, The Troop, that I'm reading, which I'm enjoying, by the way, I'm not very far into it, but I'm enjoying it. He writes kind of how I write, I think is why I like it. I don't want to accidentally read some good idea and then subconsciously use it. I kind of want to stay away from other people's stuff while I'm working on mine. And even then, when I review what I wrote, even then I'll think, did I borrow that? Should I? And I'll try to rework it so it's, if I did borrow something, it's not, you know, I can rework it to where it's not borrowed, it's more my own. But each one definitely. I mean, you only have so much time, and each thing
Right.
you're spending time on is taken away from the other. Now you read a lot. Did I ask you how long it takes you to read a book typically?
Um, I think the last book I read took me about a week, and it was because I've been having a lot of problems with focus lately. Just there's some mental health things that are being worked on, so I've been having trouble with focusing for long periods of time. So what I've been doing is I've been listening to my books on my commute and while I'm doing things that are pretty monotonous. Uh, so it took me about a week to finish the last book that I read. Oh, this one. It's
What does
called
it say? I can't see
Breakfall.
it.
Breakfall
Oh, it
by
looks like a
Desiree
scary
Gunn.
book.
It's not too bad. It's about mermaids. There's mermaids and like corruption and um like octopus people. Like what like that version of mermaids.
Oh, I didn't
And
know there were
it's a
octopus
really
men.
good story. I'm not explaining it well, and this is why I don't do reviews, okay?
Well, here's the beauty of a review. You can actually write it down and then just kind of read the script. I know one lady who's very popular who does book reviews on TikTok, and that's kind of what she does. She's good at it, but you can tell she's kind of reading, which, hey, you know what? I'm not sure anybody cares. She's got a lot of followers. We got a comment here from one of my friends, Bridget at Bridget Reach. So the first dual live session I did, I think I had to put a title on it, and I put, live with Bridget Reads or Bridget from Bridget Reads. So she chimed in and she goes, "This says you're live with Bridget Reads." So here's what's funny: every live session I've done since the one I did with her, where I put that title on it, they all say that's what they are. Every time I go live, when it's done, it'll save it, and when you go to look at it, it says live with Bridget Reads. And I'm like, I did that like 4 weeks ago. And it'll say today was live with Bridget Reads. So I don't know. Sorry, Bridget. I don't know what I screwed up on that, but that's my fault. Yours probably doesn't say that, but mine says that.
No, I think mine says like talking with Dan or something.
Well,
But
I don't know how to change it. So
I was gonna go back to the question about does reading interfere with my writing, which I think the question was for you, but
it could be
I
for
don't
one of us.
think that it interferes with my writing as much. I'm very new at writing, so been reading books and kind of reading them more critically, like looking at it and being like almost like research in a
Absolutely.
way,
That's
and
good to
like
do.
seeing how different people write and seeing how my writing style kind of um, fits in the bigger picture,
Well,
if
that's
that
good
makes
to
sense.
do. Now, think about it like this: you're writing a romantic comedy, and let's suppose there's some kind of a scene, whether it's something like just say the two main characters are going to kiss, okay? And you're thinking, okay, well, how do I want to do this? Well, you may write and then they kissed, and that's probably not what your reader's going to want. Now you've read stories like this before, so you go back and say, where's a memorable kiss that I read? How did they set it up? How did they describe it? And then you read that and you're like, oh, now that's the same as somebody who's painting saying, let me go look at the Mona Lisa. Oh, look at the brushstrokes, the texture, this, that. Not like saying, I'm going to paint the Mona Lisa again, saying, this is how this is done. A great example I use all the time is in the Stephen King story, It. I started reading it. I was reading it with the intention of trying to figure out, when do I get scared? It's supposed to be a scary book. When do I get scared? And the first thing I saw was I felt terrible about the little kid getting killed. And I was like, why do I feel so? I didn't know this kid 5 minutes ago, and now I feel terrible about it. That's a great job of doing that. How did that happen? And he's a sweet kid. He interacts sweetly with his brother, but you're told up front that he's going to die, and you're like kind of dreading every nice thing he does. You're kind of dreading this kid's going to die. And so I thought it was really, really um, masterful. So knowing that you can do something that way, now I know ways that I might want to try to do things. And then when you're done doing it, you float it out to a handful of people, and they say, "Wow, this was great," or "Gee, this sucks." And then tweak it some more.
God, I hope nobody says that to me.
Well, if you're in a critique group, you get the right kind of people. They're not there to fluff you up if you don't deserve it.
Yeah.
But usually, like if I read something that I didn't think was quite up to snuff, I would say things like, "This was good. I love this idea. Have you thought about this? Maybe a little more detail, or what I've seen
That's much
before with
better.
this." Well, because I did thousands of critiques for people when I was learning, and joining a critique group, like you said, helped me see mistakes in other people's writing, which made it sharper for me to find them in my own. And when I would read somebody would go along really well, and all of a sudden there'd be this passage kind of sticks out, and I'm like, this doesn't seem to flow. And all I would say is, to my eye, this doesn't seem to flow. And they would say, yeah, I wrote all this, and then I took a week off, and I was stuck, and so I just wrote this thing. And then it was on fire again. I kept writing. I'm like, yeah, the part that I thought stuck out is where you were saying you just kind of plugged something in. And it's like, okay, but now you're past it. That might need a second look, or does it even need to be in there, and that kind of thing. So I was always like, not so quick to say this isn't good, but to say, here's some, or even dialogue like, what if this character said this or this or this?
Yeah.
And I'd say, this dialogue's a little flat. That's what I'm thinking. I would say,
Mm-hmm.
I like the point you're making here. Have you thought about spicing these lines up a little bit, like this, or this? So now you say it's you. You get three examples that I'm saying these lines might be better. You don't have to take them, but now you've got an idea. If you reject my idea or
Now you're
take my idea, I
thinking.
don't care. Now you can reject the idea and say, I don't like that, but I see where you're going. I can
Mm-hmm.
go here with it, and then it's your style. Or again, somebody writes 30,000 words and somebody suggests a 5-word sentence. It's still your book. It doesn't change the fact that you wrote the 30,000. Just 5 of them weren't all yours, and that's no big deal.
Well, so I mean, even going back to school, in high school, you would write papers and then you would exchange them with somebody, and you would proofread and give feedback. And so I was always taught, at least by my teachers, maybe I had a really good teacher, that you want to leave constructive criticism. You don't just want to tell somebody that this is terrible. You can do it, first of all, in a nice way, and second of all, in a way that helps, rather than is just like, this sucks.
Yeah, and it's easy to say this is bad. It's like, okay, why is it bad? If I thought it was bad, I wouldn't have put it in there. I thought it was good. The fact that you didn't see it that way, what is it about it? And then what would you change? Now, with critiques, I always look at like my beta readers or whatever. If one person, say there's 20 people going to be a beta reader, if one person says I didn't really get this passage or whatever, I'll give it some thought. If 3 people say this passage doesn't work for me, I got to fix it because the
Yeah.
ratio is too high. So you gotta, and are they getting the story? There was one guy, I love this one review. I got a 5-star review, best book I ever read. The next one is a 1-star review. This guy should quit writing books. And the next one was another 5-star review, best book I ever read. I'm like, but that one guy, out of the 500 reviews that book got, the one guy who gave me 1 star, he is the one who sees the reality. He is the one who knows the fraud I am. And you just gotta shrug it off and say, you know what? Most people like it. And thank God for that guy, because now he won't read any more of my stuff. And people who don't like what he doesn't like won't read my stuff either. I'm okay with that.
I've got a comment from my friend and author Emma Steinbrecher, where I said, I've been reading more critical. She says, me, instantly nervous. But no, I actually really liked her books. She's a very good writer.
Well, and that's the whole point, is that you're developing a sharper eye, which you don't necessarily want to have when you're writing, but you definitely want to have it when you're reviewing the stuff you wrote. And like Hemingway said, write drunk, edit sober. Be freewheeling in your first draft and get it out there, and then scale back and hold yourself accountable and tighten it all up later on. So, any other questions from your side? I don't think we have any more from my side.
We addressed most of the questions that I had for you too, even
Fire away
without
if you
me
want.
necessarily asking them. I just wanted to know, you gave me advice. You talked about getting in the point of view of like negative, crazy characters and how you get into that headspace. And
That's how I do
then,
it. Yeah.
yeah. I wanted to ask you though, like, how do you go about creating fear or like instilling fear into your readers? Because I've got some scenes where this woman is being stalked and I want to convey the fear that she's feeling. But so far, all I can think of is like her physiological responses.
Well, that's most of it. That's most of it.
Most of it.
So if I'm looking at somebody, I have these young authors clubs where I work with third and fourth graders, and I say, if you saw somebody was happy, somebody you don't know, they're across the playground, or you're at a mall, they're across the mall or across the room, you see them and they're happy. What would be some things you would see them doing to let you know they're happy? And they're like, smile, laugh, this, that. What would be some things you would see if they're sad? You know, they cry, they're looking down, they're frowning. And then, of course, body language. Like if you're happy, you're standing up taller. If you're sad, you're kind of frumpy. Or if you're afraid or depressed, you go inward. So when I'm trying to convey fear, there's like two sides of the same coin. One is I try to think of something that's scary for me, right? And if I thought somebody who could hurt me was stalking me, if I knew that, then I'm going to be constantly looking over my shoulder. My heart's going to be pounding. I'm going to be, every noise I hear in my house, I'm going to wonder, is that them? Okay. And so you ratchet it up a little bit with each one. Now, the flip side of that is if I was watching somebody who was afraid, then like say it's on a movie, we the viewer hear the noise in the house and we see the
Yeah.
person jump, right? And so we're sympathetic beings. So if you jump, if you're acting terrified right now, if you have terrified, I'm going to get concerned for you, right? So as a reader, the more I have the character do something, first the reader's got to identify with the character, which is pretty easy to do. If somebody being stalked, we're going to have sympathy for that character, right? Especially if they don't like it. Back to your Harry Potter, we had sympathy for Harry right away because he's an orphan. He's living under the stairs. His aunt and uncle treat him like crap. He gets Dudley's clothes don't fit because he's a skinny little guy and Dudley's a big fat guy. He's got to cook breakfast for everybody. Under the stairs in his bed is where his thing is, right? He gets all the broken toys. On and on and on, piling on that. We would feel for anybody. And they treat him bad and it's unjust. There's no reason for them to treat him bad. So we have immediate sympathy for him for that way. And there's a number of things you can do to create sympathy for your character. But if somebody's being stalked, they're gonna bring that to the party. So then what I do is I think about the roller coaster. It's like, what is about going down that steep hill? It's the build up, click, 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 the whole way up. And then we're dreading the drop. So you gotta stretch some of that out too. So if the stalker's going to knock on her door, maybe for 5 minutes before that, she's jumping at the light flickered, or there was a strange noise in the yard, or this or that. And you've seen this in books and movies where they'll
Right.
set you up, and then they'll say, "Well, that was just a fake. That was just a cat." And then when they turn around, the monster's in their face. So what you want to do is
Okay.
write it how you would envision it, and then let it sit for a day or so, and then come back to it and say, did I put on the page what I wanted emotionally to convey? And then when you're done with that, it may take a few passes, and when you're done with that, give it in a bigger chunk to somebody else, a friend, a trusted friend, doesn't matter who, and say, look at this. And then when you're done, tell me, like, you don't preface it like I'm trying to make this person seem scared. Just give me your thoughts after. And then when they read it, because you don't want to poison the well, then when they read it,
Right.
ask them, did you find yourself being scared? Did you find this? Did you find that? And it's the tension, right? The tension of something's going to happen. She's acting here. She is acting like it's something bad, and they're getting more and more amped up. And then, yeah, your reader's right there with them. Your reader's going to be really amped up as well.
So I think, like, yeah, basically what has happened in the scene, one of the scenes that I wrote, is she looks out the window and there's nothing there. And then, so she opens the door, there's the stalker has left her something.
Oh.
And then the phone rings, so she turns around, answers the phone, and the stalker is speaking to her as if he can see her. And then she realized she forgot to close the door.
That would
Because
get
she
me.
turned around to answer the phone,
Now,
but didn't close the door.
yeah, if so, the reader might think to close the door, but as she answers the phone, she like looks through the open doorway at the package, sees some leaves rustling outside, and they're like, "Shut the door! What are you doing?" Your reader will do that. You would do that, right? So your reader will do that stuff. And then, like, you add in. So if you Google, like you said, physiological things, what do people demonstrate? What do they undergo when they're stressed? Higher heart rate, they sweat, their hands get clammy, they're looking over their shoulder, they're, the different things. And maybe they stutter. It's like, hello, who is this? And they're like not paying attention because they're looking out the door. So you add as much of that stuff as you think is appropriate, right? So then the reader is absorbing a lot of that, and they're gonna be right there with you. And listen, that's a great observation to make for a new author. So congratulations on that. You're aware of the kind of things you should be putting in. That's a good sign.
Thank you. That's kind of all the questions that I had for you because we really addressed most of the things that I had to ask. Just in natural conversation.
Well, great. Well, listen, Holly, it was great getting to meet you a little bit on TikTok, and even more fun doing it here in our live session. Love to do it again sometime. Maybe we can get you on the podcast as soon as I figure out how to do that part. But I'd love to do it again sometime. I kept you for an hour. I thought, we'll go 30 minutes. If we're having a good time, we'll keep going. I was having a good time, so I'm glad we kept going.
I had a great time too. It was very nice to get to know you. Thank you so much for doing
pleasure.
this. Like I said, I've only gone live like one other time, and it did not go well. I had weirdos in my chat,
Yeah.
and so I was like, okay, I'm done with this.
You know what? I hate to say this, but I was watching somebody else do a live session, and the comments were, well, the first one was kind of cute, not really, but kind of, where they said if you were a vegetable, you'd be a cucumber, right? I thought, that's kind of cute, corny, but I figured that's like a fifth grader saying something. And then the next one and the next one were like, oh God. And so I thought, you know what? She's keeping her composure. She was like a social media manager, so she wants to give these tips out that she's doing. And I'm like, well, she has to do that, but I don't. So I clicked on every one of those little trolls and I went over and reported them because I could do that as a viewer. She really couldn't do that, and they're gone when you're done. They're not there to do. So you could ask somebody, hey, look, ride shotgun for me here. If anybody's popping up being trolls, go report them. And you don't have to tell the trolls you're doing that. And all of a sudden, they're getting 5 or 10 complaints, and they're gone. Way to clean up. And I know the ladies get a lot more of that crap than the guys do, so that's not so fun.
Well, I used to stream video games on Twitch also.
Oh, yeah?
So I have learned very quickly I will wear a t-shirt, high neck.
I don't even know if that matters. But
anytime I stream.
Well, I get people who will come on, and I don't know if it's the same ones or not because I don't pay that much attention. And so as I'm trying to do a live stuff, it's just me. I'm trying to answer questions, so I'm reading all the comments, and it's like blah blah blah, and it's like, but it still takes you off your train of thought for a minute because you got to digest it and say, oh, that's not really a question. That's just somebody being a troll. But the good news is anybody else online sees that troll comment too, and they see you kept your demeanor and kept on going. So again, hey, look, thanks a lot for joining me. I'm gonna let you go. I had a great time this past hour with you, and I hope we do it again sometime.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
You too.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.